Let's get in. Thank you for those super chats, by the way. But let's get into the player ratings. Let's start off with Vicario. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. In my opinion, I think he had a fairly quiet day, to be honest. I do think everything that he was asked to do, he did to a fairly good standard. The couple of saves, 1 or 2 saves that he had to make during the game, and obviously when we conceded the 2 goals at the end, I think that was more to do with the defence falling asleep than actually Vicario. So I'm not going to mark him too much down on that. But the only reason I gave him a 6 and not a 7 is just because it was a really quiet day for him.
Yeah, made a couple of solid saves. One really good save I felt from Lamina in the first half where he tips it wide of the post. Apart from that, didn't have too many didn't have to exert himself too much, but I thought everything he had to do, he did pretty well. I thought he was playing out from the back pretty quickly, but I felt like the other players were letting him down a bit. So I thought he himself had a decent game. So yeah, didn't mark him down.
Next up, we're going to look at Pedro Porro, the only survivor of the back line so far this season, and 7s all round for Pedro, and I think he had a really strong game. The energy levels were so high from Pedro Porro yesterday. You can see him trying to do like 2-man's job at some time. He was a tireless task getting up and down that right-hand side of the pitch, and he was putting himself about aggressively, and defensively, I thought he stood up for the team massively yesterday, so I was happy with Pedro's performance yesterday.
Yeah, and obviously he got a really good assist as well for the goal. Really good ball across the face to Johnson. Really nice goal there. And I thought Porro, I think overall he was probably one of our better players on the day, albeit I did feel at times he struggled against Aït-Nouri. I thought Aït-Nouri had the beating of him on a couple of occasions, especially down that side. But I thought when it comes to on-the-ball quality, he was definitely accomplished, and I thought he was aggressive as well. I don't think it was his best game, but I thought he was probably one of our better players on the day.
Yeah, let's move on to Eric Dier. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. In terms of Eric, I think he was all right for the most part of the game. I thought he was defending well throughout until the last minute where he did fall asleep a couple of times. And there were a couple of dodgy moments in there from Dier playing out the back. But look, I think it's expected with Eric Dier at this point on. And look, I'm disappointed that he did fall asleep towards the end of the game, and it really was detrimental to us. But I do also kind of see that he performed well and he put a massive shift in for the team for the most part. But he's just not good enough. That's just the facts of the matter.
That's the reality. And I think this was Dier playing a decent level for him, but still just, the amount of times I saw like Cunha turn him when he's like trying to press him, when Romero, we know, would have got a lot closer, and Cunha just break into the space. Dier just playing the ball out of play unnecessarily, unforced errors. Very, very frustrating, especially that led to the first goal as well. He'd also put no pressure on the ball. But I have to say, for the 90 minutes or so, by and large, he was pretty solid. He didn't let too much get past him. He wasn't making too many mistakes. But at the end of the day, Eric Dier's lack of quality cost him at the end of the day. And even him playing at a good level just isn't good enough, to be honest, for what we want to do. And I think it showed yesterday. And this isn't even a front line where, it's a good front line. It's decent. Cunha, Hwang, Bellegarde sometimes, but he's going to have a much tougher tests going forward, and it's worrying considering at times he was struggling to cope in this one.
Yeah, sad state of affairs because we're going to have to see him a lot more in the coming weeks. But let's go on to Ben Davies. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 7. I thought he was our best player on the day by far. Well, I would say him and Porro were our best 2 players on the day, but specifically Davies, he was so aggressive, winning his duels, helping the team get up the pitch. I thought his ball playing ability was probably the best out of everyone on the team, to be honest. And yeah, he might have had his hand in the goal, but I think it was very hard to judge him on that. Who's the one that scored? I can't remember his name. Sarabia's goal, yeah. That touch and that volley, it's hard to defend against if you're the best defender, to be honest. But I felt Ben Davies was really good throughout, to be honest. I have not too many complaints about him.
I thought he was exceptional. Even with if you take the goals into account, I thought he had such an amazing game. He probably would have been more like a 9 or a 10 if we hadn't conceded. He was that good. it was just a shame near the end we let the lead slip, but I thought he was actually the leader at the back. He was standing up for the team. He was making really good clearances. I think he blocked 5 shots on the day, which is more than anyone else on the pitch. There was a few times where the ball was played across the face of goal, and he was the one making some really great challenges. And I actually thought when it came to playing out the back, he was showing a bit of quality when it came to driving the ball forward, passing it into finding a man, passing it, not playing out of play like Dier was. So I have to say, really happy with Ben Davies. Really promising performance, but again, he's going to have tougher tests. But at least I thought he passed the test really well, and Dier didn't really do it.
Yeah. Moving on to Emerson, 5s all round from Emerson, and he frustrated me massively yesterday, to be honest. Kept losing the ball time and time again, kept trying silly things, didn't impact anything in defensively or going forward. And I felt like he was another one that fell asleep right at the end when Wolves did score those 2 goals. So disappointing for me.
Yeah, him at left back again. Defensively, even defensively, he wasn't great. Obviously, he got booked right at the end that first half with a really poor challenge. But I thought by and large, defensively, he was okay. I thought Tomato didn't have too much joy, although he did get a bit of joy throughout the game. I don't think he got too much. But on the ball, again, he's just so severely lacking. There was that one moment at the end of the first half where Son plays him pretty much through on goal, and he just refuses to take a shot on his left foot, and he ends up, forcing his way back to the corner flag, and then we're all of a sudden forced to go all the way back to our goalkeeper. I just think he's just nowhere near good enough on the ball for what we're trying to do, and playing the ball quickly. I thought he did a few nice dribbles, to be fair. And I remember there was one time he played a nice through ball. I think it was to Brennan. I think that was in that first half. But the quality is just few and far between. And the sooner we get a Dogu back in that position, the better. Yeah,
which looks like it will be next game, luckily. But let's move on to Pape Matar. 6s all round for Pape. He was the one that actually, I think he started the move for the goal that we did score with a really nice ball. But apart from that, I thought like he kind of just vanished out the game a little bit, to be honest. I didn't really notice him too much. Yeah, he was running around and putting a lot of effort in, but there wasn't really too much quality apart from that one pass where he did to start the move when we did score. So he got taken off on the hour mark for Bentancur, and I felt Bentancur just provided that a lot more of a presence in midfield than he did.
Yeah, he was probably unlucky to be the one to be taken off, to be fair, because I don't think he was the worst of the 3 in terms of how sloppy they were in possession and stuff. But I don't think he had a great game himself, to be fair. And I felt he was lacking in quality on the ball. Off the ball, he was okay, but I feel it was just a very average performance from Pape.
Yeah. Let's move on to Yves Bissouma. 4s all round from us. And yeah, it was the worst performance from Bissouma this season by some distance. Everything that you associate with Bissouma and what you've seen this season, we just didn't see anything similar to that, to be honest. You associate it with him, close control, being hard to get the ball off, driving runs through the middle of the park, passing ability, and we just didn't see any of that. Every time he got the ball, he got hounded out. He couldn't seem to hold on to the ball for love nor money. His passing, every time he tried to pass the ball, it seemed to go back to a Wolves player. And it was just a really, really disappointing display from Bissouma, and something very uncharacteristic from what we've seen this season.
Yeah, he was poor. To be fair, got rightly taken off, and he was slipping on the ball as well. Him and Hojbjerg both slipped on the ball in the first half, which really put us in trouble. That confidence that we associated with Bissouma for a lot of the first part of the season just seems devoid at the moment. He doesn't seem to have it. He doesn't seem to be taking people on in the same way that he was. Off the ball, I still think, no, you know what? Off the ball, he also wasn't the same level. He also, I don't think it was as much of a drop off the ball as it was on the ball, but it's still a big drop off as well, off the ball as well. Still nowhere near where he was. He was so aggressively dominant. Nothing was getting past him. His ground duels, I think the numbers for his ground duels early in the season were so strong, and now they're a lot weaker. And I can't put my finger on what has changed since that Luton game, but maybe he just needs an arm around the shoulder of Ange, because at the moment he's really struggling to hit those performance levels again. And something seems to have switched since that Luton game. And
obviously he did pick up that yellow card in the first half, which means he will be suspended. Do you reckon that was playing on his mind a little bit? Because the last time he picked up a yellow card, he got that second yellow card against Luton, and maybe that was playing on his mind a little bit.
Maybe.
That's the only thing I can think of, literally. But let's move on to Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. On reflection, 4 is probably more fair for Hojbjerg, because I was really frustrated with him on the day. Again, similar to Bissouma, every time he seemed to make a pass, it was just going back to Wolves. There was one really nice pass which fed Brennan Johnson in behind, I think it was. But apart from that, the quality was severely lacking from Hojbjerg, and the drop off from having Maddison to him is just it's just the most crazy drop off. It really is. It's very similar to the drop off in quality in terms of creative to defensive than what we saw with having Eric Dier there to Coutinho Romero, Eric Dier there to Mickey van de Ven. That's literally what it felt like on the pitch yesterday. And he's another one who failed to track his runners at the end of the game, which helped Wolves get those 2 goals at the end.
Yeah, and I think the worst side of it is that first goal. You just see Hojbjerg like putting his hands up, letting the ball go, and then it falls to Sarabia, obviously goes and scores. That's very frustrating. It was one of those very frustrating performances from Hojbjerg where he's very sloppy, and he's just trying to make quick passes, but I feel like he's just not good when he's asked to do that. Even last season, when he's got time and space, like pick passes out, he can be very effective, but when he's in tight spaces and he's asked to play quick passes into feet and like try to play quickly with quality, a lot of the time he can be found lacking, and yesterday was definitely one of those occasions, and he was playing the ball out of play very sloppily. He was his passing was really bad, even playing out the back in dangerous areas. He gave the ball away in poor areas as well, so very, very disappointing. Albeit you're right, there was one moment in that second half he's played down the right from Son, and there was a good chance for Johnson, but he maybe rushed the chance, and you know, you could be talking about an assist at the end of the day, but poor
and it was a really good assist as well.
Yeah.
But let's move on to the front line. Let's go to Decky. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 6. It was a bit of a frustrating display from Decky, a bit of a frustrating afternoon for him as well, because the service and the lack of play in the front line from Spurs was so evident. We were hardly there pretty much for the whole game, and he just kept dropping deeper and deeper and deeper in search of the ball. It wasn't for the want of trying, because I thought he was putting an effort in massively. He had really good link-up play with Porro in the first few minutes for the goal of that really nice back heel. He was the one that fed Lo Celso as well when he had that chance. So actually, the two moments of quality that we did see, and maybe that we could have scored, he was involved in both of them. But apart from that, I mean, he didn't really do much.
Yeah, and he did have a few opportunities, to be fair. We squared up with his fullback to try and create something, and again, lacking confidence and quality to really be effective in those situations. Obviously, he did brilliant for the goal, really good back heel to Porro, and that opened up the space. But unfortunately, those moments in this game were very few and far between. And there were a couple of occasions as well where he's played into space and he was just lacking that pace to get away from his defender, and it ends up with a chance gone. But obviously, he did set up Lo Celso as well quite late on for a decent opportunity. So there were some good moments, but ultimately frustrating for Kulusevski.
Moving on to Heung-min Son. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. An extremely frustrating day for Sonny, unfortunately. I felt like we just did not provide him with any service whatsoever throughout the whole of those 90 minutes. Literally, he had pretty much no service. Nothing. The few times that we did get him the ball, I did feel like he did play a number of really nice touches, one-time touches to find the pass, but for the most part the ball was just bouncing off him, to be honest, and he couldn't make it stick really. Not much quality or anything coming from Sonny in terms of danger or providing danger to Wolves.
And for me, what upset me the most, not upset me, but disappointed me the most from Sonny was his hold-up play or his build-up play. Like every time the ball was fired into him, he was passing it straight to a Wolves player. It was really, really disappointing. And now something that has been really improving for me during the season. But yesterday, it was very much off, albeit give him credit where credit's due. In the second half, there were a couple of occasions where he played really good first-time passes into Hojbjerg and Kulusevski, which sets up decent chances.
That's what I was talking about, yeah. But
I think overall, it was very disappointing, especially that first half. The ball was fired into him.
Just bouncing off him, wasn't it?
Yeah, bouncing off him was a severe lack of quality. And then he had the one chance he had pretty much throughout the whole game in the second half to shoot. And the shot he got blocked, and that was his only chance gone. So I think he was shackled, unfortunately.
Yeah. And last of the starting 11, Brennan Johnson. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. Obviously gets his first goal for the club, which is great. Really nice run and to find the space and finish in the first few minutes. And you're thinking, all right, Spurs are going to go on and do something good here. But We just didn't. I did feel like he was making some nice runs and maybe could have got another goal, but I also felt that he was tiring as the game wore on. But that might be just the circumstance of his lack of game time and injuries that he's had in previous weeks. So I think Brennan did add something to the game and obviously got the goal and could have got another one, but it was still too few and far between.
Yeah, I felt like he was always a threat, but he was more of a threat definitely when he was running in behind rather than getting the ball to feet. I felt like when the ball was played to him to feet, he really struggled to kind of take on his man or be really direct in that way. But when we had the ball in the midfield area and he's running in behind, on a few occasions he did cause trouble, and that's where he looked at his most dangerous. So, and obviously he did get the goal, really good run to the near post when from Pedro Porro cross. So definitely he had his elements of danger, and in the second half obviously had that moment where he probably should have done a bit better, a bit more composure, and tried to score instead of taking it first time outside the box. But I felt like he was threatening, but again wasn't enough.
Moving on to the substitutes, Rodrigo Bentancur, who came on for Pape Matar with around half an hour to go. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. And as soon as he came on, you could see he added that presence in midfield. We were able to keep the ball a bit better. We had our best moment in the game after he come on. And to come in after an ACL and just look like probably our best player on the pitch, apart from Ben Davies, I thought a really big testament to him. And he's going to be massive for us in these next 3 or 4 games, because he's got real quality to him, and he's the only one that came on in that middle of the park that you're thinking, all right, we can keep the ball now.
Yeah,
and he did that.
Yeah, albeit there were a couple of occasions where he was also a bit gave the ball away a bit too easily, but I thought by and large definitely an upwards in quality when he came on, and it was just we were a lot more calmer in possession, and it actually probably led to one of our better moments in the game where we had a bit more control of it, albeit it did precede the moment where Wolves did score 2 late goals. But I did think that was probably our better moment of the game when him and Lo Celso on, which we'll talk about in a moment. So decent cameo from him, albeit I don't think it was exceptional, but it was better than what we had on the pitch before.
Yeah. Moving on to Giovani Lo Celso, Sim gives him a 7, I gave him a 6. Did provide some attacking impetus for us, had a really nice shot, which Jose Sarr was equal to. But not only that, he was coming deep, trying to knit things together in the midfield, being aggressive, winning the ball back. One really nice challenge in the middle of the park where he kind of just like slid and curled his body round and then sprayed the ball forward to start us off on an attack. But I still feel like he could have done more, to be honest, Lo Celso, but it was kind of trying to do it on his own at times yesterday.
I thought it was one of his better cameos of what we've seen this season, a bit more similar to what we were seeing maybe in pre-season, but yeah, it still wasn't maybe what we need, but definitely a bit more quality on the ball, a bit more forward thinking, a bit more playing the ball forward, and smart usage of space rather than what we were seeing before. And again, nearly got the second goal with a nice effort, and that would have killed the game off. And again, him being on the pitch led to a bit of a better period for us when it comes to having that ability to control the game and a bit more quality on the ball, but didn't lead to that second goal, and in the end it was frustrating. Yeah.
And last but not least in the playing staff, Bryan Gil, who came on yesterday, 5s all around for him. And, at that time in the game, we really needed to close that game off. We really needed to show some quality in the front line and really trouble Wolves. And unfortunately, Bryan Gil didn't do that yesterday. I thought like he came on and he was just a bit anonymous, to be honest. There were a couple of times he was getting on the ball, but he was getting muscled off it. He was getting dispossessed quite easily, to be honest. And just there was a real lack of quality from Bryan Gil yesterday, I thought.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bit weak. Wasn't able to take anyone on. Didn't really provide any sort of threat. It wasn't a bit of an anonymous cameo from Gil.
Yeah. And let's move on to Big Ange Postecoglou, the lowest rating that we're going to give him so far this season. Hopefully the lowest rating that we will give him this season. And that is 5s all round. In my opinion, I felt like he got the team selection wrong. I don't have too many complaints about the defence because it is what it is, but I did feel like we needed creative body in the middle of the park there. And with Hojbjerg, with Bissouma and with Pape Matar in the middle of the park, there was just little to no creativity whatsoever. And that showed out in the game with the amount of chances that we did create through the game. look, he can't warrant for Bissouma having an off day like he completely did yesterday, but he couldn't find the solutions to go and close off the game yesterday. And it was a very disjointed performance. And unfortunately, the buck has to stop with the manager. Yes, the changes that he did make did provide positive impact for us with Giovani and Bentancur coming on with half an hour to go. But ultimately, we lost the game and it was deserved victory for Wolves. So you got to put that down on Ange.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously hindsight is 20/20, as they say, but
we did say it before the game as well.
Yeah, we wanted Lo Celso starting, and I think that probably tells a story in terms of when we came on. He was probably our best moment of the game, so we probably should have. I think in hindsight, he would have looked at that and thought there wasn't enough quality in the middle. The players he was asking to play quickly just didn't provide enough quality to play through the lines quickly enough. There wasn't enough intensity in our passing. So he did change it. It did benefit us, but it didn't benefit us enough to give us enough control where it was where we were ever likely to see out the game. And look, I feel for him because the injuries are going against us, but unfortunately it was a very poor display overall, and he never really corrected it to a stage where we were playing well. We played better, but even then we weren't playing well. So that has to stop with him.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is our player ratings. Let me know in the comment section below, what ratings did you give the players yesterday?